numerically the most devastating animal welfare issue worldwide. 7 billion day-old male chicks which are culled annually. The incentive in most of the countries is far more focused on the economy rather than on animal welfare.
Welcome to Unplugged, the official podcast of the Poultry Science Association. This is the podcast that strips away the fluff and gets real about poultry science from bench to barn. I'm your host, Andy Vance, Executive Director of the Poultry Science Association. In this week's episode, we're going to break the shell and look at how In-Ovo sexing is transforming poultry farming. We'll explore advancements in In-Ovo sexing technologies and the potential to eliminate the culling of male chicks. Our guest this week is Dr. Yuval Cinnamon, Principal Investigator at the Agricultural Research Organization at the Volcani Center in Israel. Dr. Cinnamon is an embryologist by training, and he began his academic career while completing his doctoral studies at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Following that, he did a pair of postdoctorate fellowships at Hebrew University and the National Institute for Medical Research in London, the United Kingdom. Back in Israel, Yuval joined the Hadassah Medical Center to run the genetic research lab there, focusing on rare diseases in humans. And focusing on embryology using the chicken as a model organism, the research in his lab addressed some questions on embryogenesis and genetic transformation in chickens. All his projects aim to improve food security, health, global sustainability, and animal welfare issues using cutting-edge technologies. Dr. Cinnamon also leads Next Hen. I got to admit, one of my favorite names and brands. Is founder and chief scientific officer. They're a sexing solution that hatches only female chicks, removing that need for male chick culling altogether. Dr. Cinnamon, welcome to Unplugged. Let's start with the big picture. If for the audience here, there's this broad scientific background. Let's start with what is it that determines if an egg becomes male or female, and how do we start thinking about the idea of manipulating that from a scientific perspective?
Very nice to talk to you, Andy. Sex determination in chickens relies on the segregation of the sex chromosomes. And unlike in humans, in which the male, the father, is determining the gender of the embryo, in chickens it is the mother hen which determines the sex of the embryo by a segregation of one of the two sex chromosomes, Z and W. And if the Z chromosome segregates, the embryo will develop into a male. And if the W chromosome segregates to the embryo, it will develop into a female. So the common denominator of all males is the maternal Z chromosome, which comes from the mother hen.
One of the things I found really interesting as we were doing our background research for this episode is that the idea of identifying the sex of a chick prior to hatching isn't new. Like, this technology feels like, oh wow, this is really innovative and new and cutting edge. But we've been actually trying to study how do we determine the sex of these chicks prior to hatching for quite a long time. Would you give us some of the background and the scholarship that's been done over a half century or longer in this space that maybe laid the groundwork for what you're doing in your lab currently?
Yes. So that's an very interesting question. So if we go to the early 20s or 30s, most of the chickens were kind of dual hybrid chickens. So the hens laid eggs and the males were used for meat. And within the last 8 years or so, selection, today we're actually having two completely different breeds. These are the broilers, which are grown for meat, and the layers, which lay the table eggs. And the broilers, we use the males and females, of course, but within the layers, we only need the hens. And for each female chick that hatch, also a male chick hatches. And for many years now, the practice is to sort them at the day they hatch. And this is probably numerically the most devastating animal welfare issue worldwide. We're talking about 7 billion day old male chicks, which are culled annually. And this is very costly to the industry because each male is estimated worth $1, which is huge amount of money for the industry. Most of the attempts to solve this problem focused on sorting technologies. How to tell the difference between males and females as early as possible during the embryonic period. And being an embryologist, this is quite a challenging question because the embryos in mammals, humans as well, but definitely within chickens, develop until very late stages with bipotential reproductive system.
Hmm.
So they are both males and females in terms of their organs. Clearly, the DNA is different.
Right.
There is no practical way to tell the difference between a male and a female embryo. And this is a major challenge which all sorting technology face. And it is only at about day 9 to 10 that some minor embryonic changes occurred that under the microscope you can tell the difference between males and females. And this caused a major challenge for the sorting concept.
Right.
In
Yeah. So how did you get, how do we get from there where, okay, there's this challenge. How do we determine from the embryo to where we are now, where this technology exists that allows us to do the sexing in ovo?
Currently, there are very few technologies for sorting which are used commercially. They are based on DNA sampling, so you need to draw allantoic fluid or yolk from the embryo to run PCR tests for millions of eggs. Other technologies which use spectroscopy, which is the identification of the color feather, and this is only applicable for brown chickens, which are not the majority. And these are all technologies are very costly and impractical, and they may be adopted in a very small amount in places, but for the long term, I think these technologies are unlikely to provide a true solution. The problem with sorting, again, is that sorting means errors,
Mm.
mistakes. And so, if using sorting, you kill wanted hens, that's a drawback, a major drawback.
Right.
And what would you do if your sorting mistakes are hatched males? You still need to kill them.
Mm.
So the solution that we've developed in the lab relies on two key insights. And the first insight is that practically there are no differences between males and females until very late stages in development. And so this is not the way to go.
Mm.
The second insight is that sex determination relies on the segregation of the sex chromosome. And so, if the sex chromosome, the maternal sex chromosome of all males comes from the mother, this is the target of our solution. And if we could introduce a genetic trait which is sex linked
Mm.
to this chromosome, and this trait prevents the development of everyone who carries it,
Mm.
then at the very early stages in development, male embryos will stop developing.
Right.
So there will be no males. And because this is a genetic based solution, it is 100% accurate. And it doesn't require, of course, X sampling or MRI or sophisticated technologies.
Mhm.
It's just basic genetics. If you carry the trait, means that you are a male and you won't develop. And if you don't carry it, then you are wild type, unmodified female, because the W chromosome is unmodified,
Right.
and the hens are alive and they grow normally to become the layer hens, which lay the normal table eggs.
Yeah, I think One of the things I've been pondering about this is, the potential impact of figuring this problem out is significant. I love that you started talking about, this being one of the biggest animal welfare challenges that we face in the poultry industry. Also a big economic issue as well, as you highlighted. I think some of the literature I saw in our research, you're looking at potentially 7 billion birds a year that get culled, maybe more than that now. So we're talking about a major challenge for the industry. What's been the response to folks as you start talking with them about the solution and the technologies that you've been working on your lab? What's been the conversation you'll have with fellow scientists, with industry folks, with other stakeholders?
So I will start with the challenging stuff.
Yeah.
And the challenging stuff, the first question would be, how will the public accept a genetically modified based solution?
Uh-huh.
And this is indeed a challenge. It's a regulatory challenge. But as I mentioned, the product itself, the layer hen, is by definition non GMO, and so are the table eggs. And this notion was accepted by worldwide regulatory authorities, including the FDA and EFSA in Europe, which stated that this kind of solution basically does not require any GMO labeling or attention. Yes, the mother hens are GMO, but there are farms and facilities and guidelines on exactly how to grow them safely. And the end product, which are the table eggs, these are by definition non GMO. So this is the challenge.
Hmm.
On the good side, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
It's a game changer, and it's a game changer because it was designed from the very beginning to integrate seamlessly to the workflow of the industry. So the hatcheries will not need to implement some kind of very expensive and sophisticated technology. The hatcheries will be able to sort the male eggs very early during incubation and to save over 50% of incubation space. This is huge amount of energy. It betters with the environment, of course.
Right.
The sorting room costs huge amount of money. There will be no dead males to dispose,
Uh-huh.
and the male eggs could be used for feed regarding the regulations in different countries.
Uh-huh.
And the industry, I think, likes good solutions which do not require major changes.
Sure.
And this is what it is exactly. It does not require almost no change, but saving and eliminating the step of sorting and culling the males. The farmers will get exactly the same chickens as they get today. The
Mhm.
hatcheries will get the same eggs. The only difference would be that by the end of incubation, they will get only females. No need for sorting and culling.
Yeah, if I understand this correctly, to go back to kind of how the process works, we're affecting that change for the female parent, so that those males, the embryo in essence doesn't develop, right? So we've got those male eggs that just don't the embryos don't develop. So when you look at how this has come together, what's been the adoption to this point, how the technology is being picked up in different parts of the world or different responses? Are you seeing good uptake in the early stages?
Since the solution is based on genetics, the first step of introducing the solution into the industry requires basically the creation of a genetic line, and these exist in not too many companies in the world. Actually, very few of them provide the entire industry with the layers. What is needed to be done is to take our technology and transfer it into these breeding companies, genetic lines. And this is basically the only change that the industry will have to face. So, from the breeding company downwards, the implementation of this technology, it will be basically transparent. And this is where we are now. We are planning to start a large scale experiment to demonstrate the accuracy in a level of commercial hatchery. And once we pass this trial, I think that we will commence with introducing our technology into the breeding companies, into the genetic lines.
When you think about the timeline here, or the technological innovations, or the things you have on the bench currently that you're still working on, what does this technology look like 5 years from now? What's your what are your kind of dreams, and your big vision, the things that excite you about how this science is developing when it comes to this idea of in-ovo sexing, and the use of these technologies to reduce the impact of male culling?
The sky's the limit. This is where, again, because there are not that many breeding companies in the world, if we will be able to introduce this technology into such a company, I think it will not take long until the entire industry will adopt this solution.
Mm.
Because first, it solves the animal welfare issue. And at least in Europe, it's a major concern for the hatcheries. For example, in Germany, in which culling male chicks is not legal, they basically cut down the industry significantly. They used to have 22 active hatcheries, and today they only have 7 because the hatcheries cannot survive this banning.
Right.
And I think that the company that will use this technology will spread it worldwide, even in countries which are not very interested in animal welfare. And there are some countries like this, but they will want to use it because it gives them a good value.
Yeah, that's a great point, because on the one hand, I could see Europe as a place where, okay, adoption will be driven by countries banning the practice of male culling, like you described there. But I would think the market implications of being able to, as you noted earlier, cut all those inefficiencies out of the current system would be more likely to pull demand, right, as opposed to a push from governments, a pull from the economics. That seems like a pretty compelling argument as well.
Very much so, yes. Economic incentive is a major factor. And considering technologies which will increase the price of the eggs are in most of the worlds will not be acceptable. And these are the kind of sorting technologies which require implementation of expensive technology, and this increases the price of the chicks and the table eggs later on. The incentive in most of the countries, I would say, is far more focused on the economy rather than on animal welfare. But using the golden solution, it's a win-win situation.
Mm.
The industry will get huge amount of savings in time and labor and money. Environment will also benefit.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept, and I love the kind of innovative approach you've taken to solving, one of the bigger challenges facing the industry. Dr. Cinnamon, as we wrap up our time together, we have a question I like to ask each guest on Unplugged, and that's, what's one misconception about poultry science or the poultry industry that you wish more people understood?
I would say that one of the things is the challenges within the broiler breeders. The layers are excellent chickens in reproduction. They lay almost 8 eggs per day. They are very easy to grow, but clearly they are not suitable for the meat production. The broilers are poor breeders, but they are excellent in growing. Project that we're currently working on and making a new nice progress with it is generating a new layer breed which will lay eggs from which broiler chicks will hatch. So the layers which are very easy to grow, they will be just normal layer breeders. No feed restriction, no spiking of the males, easy management, very long longevity. The eggs that they will lay will have non-GMO, just normal broiler chicks. The productivity could be tripled.
Huge. Fascinating work, and I look forward to having you back on the podcast to talk about that project as it comes to fruition. Dr. Yuval Cinnamon of the Volcani Center in Israel and Next Hen. If you want to learn more about that technology, you can visit their website, nexthen.net. Great conversation today about some really innovative work in genetics and embryology. Thank you for joining us on Unplugged. Friends, I want to give you a couple reminders. The Poultry Science Association annual meeting and North American Scientific Conference is coming up this July in Raleigh, North Carolina. The Oak City will host 4 days of scientific presentations and networking and opportunities for you to discuss and disseminate your scholarly research and make connections that'll help you move forward some innovative opportunities like we were discussing with today's guest. Early bird registration is open now. Early bird gets the worm, as they say. Join us by registering before May 14th to get our best rates. Book your hotel, see all of the fun and exciting events that'll be coming up this July in Raleigh. Also, this October in Macau, join us for the inaugural PSA Pacific Rim Scientific Conference. You will want to be able to tell your children and grandchildren that you were there the first time PSA went to Macau for the Pacific Rim Scientific Conference. That event is October 13th through 16th. Abstract submissions for that conference is now open, so you can go to poultryscience.org and register for our annual meeting, submit your abstract to the Pacific Rim Conference, and find many other ways to be involved and engaged in the work of the Poultry Science Association. Hope to see you at one or both of those meetings. Next week on Unplugged, we're going to dive into the first in a series of historical conversations. We're going to talk with Dr. Paul Siegel about the history of the poultry industry and how poultry science fits into the conversation over the years. Looking forward to sitting down with Dr. Siegel and getting a history lesson. I hope you'll join us next week, the next edition of Unplugged. Reminder, if you enjoyed today's conversation, I would invite you to subscribe to Unplugged wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And if you thought this conversation was particularly interesting, give us a rating. It does help other folks find this podcast as they're perusing to find where they want to get great content on poultry science. Until next time, I'm Andy Vance for the Poultry Science Association.